In this video, I'm going to give you 9 big tips on what to look out for if you're buying a house to renovate. Look out for these potential red flags and make sure that you're getting the right investment. I wanted to make this video for you because we often talk about how to design and renovate properties on this channel, but not usually about how to find the right property in the first place. There's work that you can actually do now to identify which property will be a massive headache, don't touch it with a barge pole, versus one that's got a lot of potential and will be financially viable for you to renovate and make it the right home for you in years to come. I've supported thousands of new renovators to turn their projects into their dream spaces, and if you've ever wondered how an interior designer would go about buying their own renovation property, then there's lots of information that I want to share with you in today's video. Plus, there are some red flags I need to talk to you about to watch out for at your next viewing, and I've got a couple of bonus ideas that you may not have considered yet, which could end up saving you thousands of pounds. Okay, enough of my rambling, let's get into it. Okay, so you open up Rightmove to see what you can afford in your area, but after 30 minutes of scrolling, it becomes a daunting and sometimes quite disheartening search. I remember scrolling through Zoopla constantly, thinking to myself, if only we had another 20 or 30,000, we could invest in a better location or an extra bedroom. And with so many factors to take into account when you're buying a renovation property, like size, location, property potential, and obviously the price, I really recommend introducing some structure to your search that's going to ease your cognitive load, release some of that pressure, and strengthen your decision-making process. We've all experienced it. It's a huge pain when you rock up at the supermarket without a shopping list, and it ends up with you buying loads of things that you didn't actually need because you were attracted to the prices or what's on offer. And then you end up walking out having forgotten the things that you went in for in the first place. That's a really basic way of putting it, but buying a fixer-upper is kind of the same, but of course, lots more high stakes. You've got to know what you're looking for if you want to avoid rushing into decisions that you may later regret. Important factors to consider are, of course, location, the number of bedrooms, whether there's garden space, room to extend towards the side or the rear, and whether there's head height to convert a loft. But there are other questions to ask yourself to get really clear on before you decide to make an offer on a renovation project. And here's where my interior design brain comes in, because at property viewings, I'm not just looking at the location and the number of rooms or how the home feels, I'm also looking at whether it can comfortably fit standard sofa sizes, beds, dining table sizes, and whether there's any opportunities for storage possibilities, and then how the current kitchen and bathroom could be reconfigured to offer more space if that's needed. Any properties that can't offer me that potential, I'm just not going to look at them and I'm on to the next. I've worked on some renovation plans in the past, and usually they're period properties with odd-sized alcoves or cottages with quirky layouts that's landed in front of me because the homeowner found the layout just really challenging to work on by themselves, and they really needed help to understand how to open up the space without spending too much money on the construction side. The more walls you need to knock or build, the higher the renovation costs are going to be for you and professional fees. Now, I'm not saying don't choose an old property or don't buy a property with a higgledy-piggledy layout, but I am saying that if you're new to renovating or you've got a particularly tight budget, say below £100,000, and you need to do a full house renovation, it's worth understanding that the more straightforward the layout, the less challenging you'll personally find it mentally and financially. And this is where having your shopping list and establishing what exactly you're looking for is so important. Otherwise, you could be buying a property that you can't afford to extend or convert, missing out on details that will compromise your lifestyle and feel really regretful later. I'll talk more about how to calculate renovation costs in a moment, so stay with me. Next is finding a property that's priced accurately to make sure you aren't paying over the odds just because an over-optimistic estate agent is inflating their asking price. You'll need to get a sense of the houses available in the location that you're buying and how active the market is over the last few months and currently. Zoopla sold prices are a great place to look at here. You can see what similar houses on the same streets have been selling for recently, with or without renovation work completed. It's going to give you a rough idea of the kinds of prices that are accurate for the location, including remedial work involved to bring the property up to modern standards. It's also useful to drill down into planning applications and any disputes in the area that you're looking to buy. Even things like crime reports can help to narrow down your search and select the right location to invest in. And if it's a property you're planning to let to families, say, then finding a property with great schools in the catchment area will attract renters or future buyers. But what's key throughout your whole property search is you finding what you want and being able to afford the alterations the property needs, preferably without hitting the ceiling price or paying over the odds if you don't want to. Don't overstretch yourself financially and only go for it if you're sure you can afford the property and the alterations required. With so much to keep track of when you're looking at multiple properties in lots of different locations, to prevent some headaches, we've created a handy spreadsheet, which is our property viewing checklist. It includes the red flags to look out for and questions to ask at your next viewing, and I'll leave a link to download it in the description box. It's all yours to fill out and take along with you at every property you go to view. Now, the research you do in the previous steps that we've discussed will start to give you a really good feel for what it is you want and what's available for you at your price range in the location that you're looking to buy. Just as important as defining your hell yeses is clarifying your hard no's and honouring them, even if the property market is pretty quiet and you can actually afford to wait until the right property comes along. Obviously, when you're buying a renovation, there is a level of compromise that you're going to be doing already, but it's still worth you thinking very carefully about your appetite for risk and what extent are you prepared to go with the renovations. I've actually often thought that renovations need their own grading system to explain their difficulty. You know, there's straightforward, challenging, this is going to need some serious capital and a major facelift, and nope, just leave it to the millionaires. So you might be a hell yes if the property needs remedial work, perhaps additional footprint added like an extension or all new aesthetic updates, but maybe you're a hell no at the thought of having to take on a property with no access to mains water, power or a heating supply if it's just that step too far for your situation right now. People's appetite for renovation risk varies widely based on their funds, ability, previous experience, desires and life situations. So it's really good to clarify your needs to anyone you're buying a property with, including estate agents if they're looking on your behalf. Just so that you're pulling in all the same direction and preventing any wasted time viewing properties that just aren't for you. So let's say you've found the property, you've fallen in love with it, and you know roughly how much it will cost to purchase. Now's the time to figure out how much all of the possible remedial work and renovation work will cost you on top. It's crazy to think that 40% of all renovators go over budget, and you can prevent this by carefully estimating your renovation costs before you buy the property. Now, figuring out renovation costs is definitely somewhere between an art and a science, but it's one we like to think that we're a bit of a dab hand at now, and students who join our online courses are using very straightforward methods to accurately calculate their affordability. So take a look at our online courses or start with our free renovation video series, which contains guidance on how much you can expect to pay for renovation work, plus some nifty money-saving tips, which I'll leave all the links for in the description box. But let's be honest, running out of money happens, right? We're the first to tell people we made some costly mistakes during our renovation. Thankfully, because we'd planned a healthy contingency and prioritised work, all of our essentials like roof repairs, the asbestos removal, structural changes and aesthetic updates to the whole house were completed to a good standard with our original budget. Running out of money can be a big concern, so you may want to phase your project to acquire more funds in between. And really this deserves its own video because there are so many methods to acquire the funds to renovate. We have a class dedicated to this in our online course. Okay, so what about surveys? Full structural or building surveys are definitely expensive, but when you're spending this much money on a project, it is one of the only ways to manage your risk at this stage. You need to limit any nasty surprises as quick as you can so that you know what you're buying and how much it's going to cost you. And nasty surprises definitely happen. Yes, the property may look okay as you're walking through on the viewing, but sellers can be pretty cunning at papering over the cracks, sometimes quite literally papering over them, or positioning furniture to hide rising damp. So a building survey is worth every single penny. And if you have a pretty good idea of what you want to do with the property, now is the time to ask a builder to have a preliminary look at the property with you to help you estimate costs. If you know a reputable builder who can come with you to the viewing, that's an obvious great scenario, take them along. But if not, then prepare to pay a builder for their time, which is well worth it to avoid hassle and stress and get an expert opinion. Another thing I just wanted to mention here briefly is that you can use those survey findings to negotiate with and reduce the final price of your property. We got our offer accepted and then used the results of our building survey to negotiate over £20,000 off the price. And a surveyor will probably spot a lot of problems that need resolving that you initially didn't see, which is exactly why building surveys are so important for renovators to do. Our surveyor actually gave us an estimate on repair costs as well. He spotted some issues and then gave us a ballpark price of how much the remedial work would be. It's not particularly common for surveyors to offer this, but it's well worth asking if they can provide it. But yeah, remember that having a survey will act as good leverage on reducing your house costs further. If the properties you're looking at do need complete gutting, then this next step is really important for you to consider, and that's whereabouts you'll live when the work's happening. Living in a renovation can be really hard, and when you throw kids or working from home into the mix, it can be an almighty mess. Whereas renting elsewhere then costs you extra cash, and if there's any delays to the work finishing, it extends your move-in date, so you're paying more money than you expected. So which is actually right for you? Figuring out the pros and cons of living on site versus elsewhere is essential to do early on while you're budgeting for the purchase of this property. There's so much more I can say about this, but in short, both have their advantages. Living on site saves a ton of money on rent, and it also means that you can stay very close to the renovation, whereas renting obviously keeps you away from all the mess and it's far less stressful. Now, when you're looking at fixer-uppers, damp is one thing that you really need to look out for. Obviously, you can consult a damp expert and have a specialist survey conducted, but there are things that you can also keep an eye out for during your viewings to make sure that everything's okay before you place that offer. Look out for things like any walls that feel moist to the touch, or any serious dark or crumbling patches on the walls. But also remember that some things can look bad, but in reality they're actually pretty solvable. And this can happen when you see large stains across ceilings. Don't immediately freak out, because it can be an innocent problem like seals on showers that have leaked in the past and since been corrected. With a little bit of stain blocker and some paint, then it'll be as right as rain again. Now, I don't want to scare you, but if you're a first-time renovator and this is uncharted territory, it is going to be stressful. Moving into a renovation is nothing like renting or moving into a new build or a home that's already been done. From the start of the search to finally waving goodbye to the builders, it's intense and it can get very disruptive. But honestly, with no pain, there's no gain. I always think that. This is your opportunity to truly create your dream home and choose every single finish, from the skirting boards to the worktops, everything. Yes, there are lots of unknowns and uncertainty that will be very stressful, but with some careful planning and a really structured approach, you'll prevent expensive mistakes and banish any design regrets, ending up with a home that's completely tailored to your needs. My partner Neil and I created our renovation online course and our Reno Club private community to help renovators just like you through this process from start to finish. So for more information on that, the link is in the description. But hold on, we're not done just yet. I mentioned that I'd give you a couple of bonus tips to make sure that this investment is just right for you. So the first one is, have you considered speaking to the locals? I know as British people, knocking on a random person's door, it seems pretty alien. Like, it gets my heart rate right up just thinking about it. But honestly, we've had people knock on our door and we just really enjoyed it. Your house becomes a part of your life, and talking about it with people who have a mutual interest is such a great icebreaker. The conversation can actually reveal so much insight on things that won't be obvious from a couple of viewings, like whether you've got noisy neighbours, any parking issues in the area, planning permission setbacks, or issues with damp and subsidence. The list goes on. Your potential future neighbours definitely won't sugarcoat anything about the area, and they'll just give it to you straight. And please, please, please negotiate based on what your findings are in your structural survey. Finding out your dream house has a host of problems can feel really deflating, but actually this can be turned to your advantage. The way to look at it is that there might be more problems that the survey uncovers, but that could equal a greater reduction on the price. The sellers might say no, but it's always worth a try. So those are my tips if you're buying a property to renovate. Remember to download our property viewing checklist in the description box. It's a helpful way to make sure that you're getting all of the information you need in such a short space of time during your viewing. And let me know how your house hunting is going at the moment. Tell me in the comments down below, I'd love to hear about your search. Thank you so much for watching this video, and see you again in the next one.